Hello, Radiance.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining. We are rocking all black everything with the red
Yes.
lip. That is good energy. So I wanted to start by just giving you space just to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, listeners. My name is Radiance. Yes, that is my real name. My mom said I was glowing out the womb. Okay, so she can have that. I always say that. She can have that. But I do exude radiance in everything I do. So I love that. And now being a wellness person, it does match. But a little bit about my story. I'm from originally Greensboro, North Carolina. And I like to call myself somewhat of a phenom. So I ran track growing up, and even now, I'm really big into health, the wellness field, and to helping people reframe their minds, motivate. I'm like your favorite hype woman.
Yes.
Yes, right. And then but outside of that and all the creative aspects, I did major in advertising. So I'm able to do creative experiential experiences as well as helping people understand exactly what looks good or what they need, and getting right into that. So it's kind of cool to look at that aspect of like the athletic side
Hmm.
as well as the creative side. And so that kind of forms me into what I do today. And so I'm a wellness advocate. I like to say I'm a champion of well-being. And I have a business that's called Rooted in Radiance. And so we do experiential workshops and experiences to help people reshape their habits, their perspectives, reframe their minds, and help them take care of their bodies. So our focus is on well-being, fitness, and mental resilience. And I know you'll learn much more about
Oh,
that
yeah,
later.
because I'm going to ask lots of questions.
Yes. That's me in a nutshell. And I am super hyped to be twinsies with you today.
Yay!
Yeah.
Radiance and Zainab. Beautiful. So,
Yes.
our listeners have probably heard another podcast. I just want to share a little bit about how we connected. So, I am in an organization with Radiance's sister,
Love
and she
that.
recommended Radiance to me for help with like career stuff. And
Mhm.
initially the goal was to help her get a different job. And then I want to say like halfway through the process, because it was about
Yeah.
a couple of months we were working with each other. You just came to me and you're like, no, I think we completed all of the work with your
Yeah.
resume. And then afterwards, I just remember getting a message from you and you're like, I'm going to, what country in Africa was it?
So it was in Ghana.
It was
Yeah. It's a
Ghana.
little village
I'm going to
outside of
Ghana, Zainab, and I'm going to be coaching young people in
like peace.
soccer, right? In football. And I was like, okay, not like as a bad thing, but all of
Oh,
our conversation, we had some very deep conversation, reflective conversations, which helped Radiance to get to the point where she realized
right.
she wanted to pull out of the traditional marketing roles that she was doing. But
And
I
go
wasn't
explore
expect
the
that wasn't on my bingo cards. So, but
world.
when I heard that, I was like, oh man, this is going. I knew that the journey that you were getting ready to go into was gonna be remarkable, and it's been such a. And that was during the pandemic or before.
So it was September
So that was only
2020.
2 years ago. And in
Yeah.
2 years, because you had your platform, but it wasn't as big as it is now 2 years ago,
Mhm.
right?
Right, because the thing is and I like to tell people before and when
Mm-hmm.
I was intersected with you,
Yeah,
I
you
was
were.
that corporate patty, and so I appreciate that woman, like she did a great job because we're where we are. And so that's when I had the intersection with you and I was working with you. And I was like, you know what? This isn't it. I wanted more flexibility and freedom.
Yes.
And so I ended up taking the career sabbatical. And so I took 2 weeks off using what we have here is it's called FMLA, Family
Yeah.
Medical Leave Act. And so I
Yeah.
used that as an opportunity and decided to travel the world exploring global well-being and
Yeah.
how our ancestors and those around the world take care of themselves, because we're operating here in survival mode. So I went to Ghana, Ethiopia, actually visited Zanzibar, and I went to Dubai and resigned my job in Ethiopia. And so when I was working with you, it was one of those things where, you know what you can do, you can
Mm-hmm.
go here, you can do this, but your heart posture tells you differently. And so there's an
Mm.
element of like really following your passion and the things that really resonate in your heart and having the
Yeah.
courage to do so. That's the
Yeah.
hardest part, is having the courage to do so. Or
Yeah.
you can go get your next job. But I think God was, for me, was like, nope, you
Yeah.
need to go here. And so it was a really great experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So thank you for kind of like wrapping up like our interaction with each other in terms of just like, you know,
Yeah.
we're initiated, but I wanted to you to share a bit more of the work that you do now, like how you're helping people. And
Yeah.
then what were some of the things in your career journey? Like what was your career journey that helped you to get to where you are now? Because your mom said that you were radiating when you came out the womb, but I
Yes.
also think she understood the power of words when she gave you that name. And I
Yeah.
really feel like when I see you, even in our personal conversations
Yeah.
and online, I see the word radiance, right? I feel the energy in our conversations. Like we spoke about a month or so, you were by the pool just chilling,
Yeah.
and it was very much like you were radiating. My question is,
Yes.
what's your career story? I'm listening.
Yes. And even now, I help people to identify their goals.
Mhm.
And I love like hearing this story, because I'm like, ooh, like I have this one meditation where it talks about how you've been preparing for this radiance, your whole life, right? All the many
Yes.
radiances, all the many selves you have
Yeah.
been built upon to become like who this person is now. And so even when I think about my career story and even like the foundations of what a career is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like, because for me, I'm so, like how you said, we had such deep conversations. It was like a therapy career coach. But like when I really understood what a career was, and I noticed that for me, I didn't want to just stick myself to something and conform for the rest of my life and then just wait for like a pension or a paycheck. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to create. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
build things. I wanted to have impact. And I knew that one of the things that I did, I believe it was right before I started working with you, because I was like at wit's end. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
completely took a list of all the things I was good at. I just started writing
Yeah.
the things that I was good at, like genuinely. And so
Yeah.
I would reference that list and say, I really like client relations. I do. Like working with a client, giving them an idea and helping them execute it, right? And so I
Yeah.
tried to really focus on the characteristics of the things that I liked, to separate my mind from the corporate, right? The corporateness of it.
Yes.
And so that helped me build the confidence to take the sabbatical, like kind of regulate my nervous system, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because the
Yeah.
pandemic and everything and all the events that transpired really
Mm-hmm.
put
You was getting
all that.
tried. You was getting.
And the thing is, I was big tried, and like on
Yeah.
top of that, talking to your friends and they're tried too, and now
Yeah.
you're just irritable because your friends hype try, like I'm like, man, I'm hyped for her, I'm hyped for me.
Yeah.
I just need I always say, Men in Black, like where it's like a hard reset, right?
Yes.
But I just needed to clear my mind. And so after doing that and going out into the world to travel, to expand my mind and to see that this isn't the trap, you're not trapped. My
Mm-hmm.
glass ceiling shattered. I was like, wow, I am brand new. I can really take this blank canvas and create a new story. But
Yeah.
taking the things that I've learned in our education system, which is like base foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also taking the passions and the skills that I have in the roles that I've actually liked doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, let's build something. And so going back to the heart posture, the things that I'm really good at is health and fitness. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about the impact you're doing, it's so cool to look back at, like, I love analytics. I love
Mm-hmm.
looking back at like the event recaps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we do experiential programming surrounding yoga, wellness, well-being, breath work, meditation. And so even right now, I'm planning the second annual, one of our biggest events, which is called I Am the Dream. And it's a yoga
Mm.
wellness event centered around Martin Luther King Day. Um, and
Beautiful.
how establishing a peaceful place within yourself, peaceful presence within yourself, is one of the biggest keys to systemic change, right? Like that
Mm.
discipline, that peace. And so we do a yoga flow to Martin Luther King Jr. speech, and there are performances and different things. And so Lululemon's one of the partners. They gave, I know Canada, they gave away yoga mats to the first people there to help them with their well-being. We had different partners. It was just amazing. And over 2 people came. And so when we talk about
Wow.
impact, and even talking to some folks, I'm like, well, when's the last time you heard his speech? And they were like when I was a kid, maybe like in school. Like people don't just like sometimes just listen, but really having that. So I am a social impact enterprise. Like I like to make sure that we're shaping healthy environments, that we're establishing safe spaces for people to want to take care of themselves,
Yeah.
to want to just have a moment to
Yeah.
breathe. So it's really cool. It's when I look at my career journey, the biggest piece was kind of stepping out of that imposter syndrome, that
Yeah.
I could be a change agent. Because when you're in corporate, they do try to say your change agent effect has to be per like level you reach, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't have been a manager saying, hey, we should do this, this, and this, and this, and this incubator space, and blah, 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 blah. They'd be like, whoa, 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 hold on. Your role is this, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm able to say, I want to advocate. I want to reach out to council members to be part of this. I want to do this. I want to apply to these accelerator programs to help community and
Mm-hmm.
build the gap, the bridge of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what's kind of fun. And when I really think about the work that I do and using all the characteristics that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and to be real, like I'm dope. Like I'm really cool. Like I can
Yes.
say all those things, but at the end of the day, I'm showing up to that meeting with bantu knots, a red lip, and I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing, right? And
Yeah.
so I think even that being the cultural translator for like different folks and like really bringing it back to say, hey, no, we got a straight up Afrobeats yoga flow. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
dead serious, and like making it make sure that people have fun, take screenshots
Mm-hmm.
in their mind, that they feel like they're included and they have like accessible, and like some of the barriers to all of that are like
Mm-hmm.
lowered. That's the work that we do.
Yeah. Ooh, you touched on some really amazing things. I want to go back a
Yeah.
little bit because one of the first words that you said that really resonated with me was the word courage. And
Mhm.
I think that there's a phenomenon that happens when you're in a corporate setting, especially as a woman of color.
Yeah.
We have to minimize ourselves, but still work at an exponential level of grind, if that makes sense, right? It's almost like don't be your true authentic self, but break your back to make sure
Yeah.
that people think that you're qualified, right? And so what happens is that we lose our sense of who we are. And then the system also diminishes our courage, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so when we're trying to make a transition out of that space, it's even harder because we're like, one, I don't remember who I am anymore. And two, I'm so used to having to minimize myself. Like, am I even capable of making this shift, of making this
Yeah.
change? So, like, was there a catalyst for you where because I can tell you that there was a point where their courage really wasn't there. I witnessed it. And so I want to
Yeah.
know for you, where did you source that courage? Like, where did you fertilize it?
Yeah. I'm still sourcing. Okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
be real. Like,
Yeah.
I think that is something that's going to happen every level I go, right? So I needed courage to just start the LLC, like to be like, oh, I can do this. And then now I need courage to ask someone for 6 figures, like as a grant or something like
Yeah.
that. Because to me, I'm like, well, that's too much. Because
Yeah.
depending on how we grew up, courage looks different, right? I have a
Yeah.
counterpart, or even as a corporate baddie, I had my counterparts who were making well over that, who are maybe even trust fund babies.
Yeah.
Courage is like way different than me trying to just ask for a raise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, the way that I had to find courage was looking at myself from the outside. So
Mm.
I had to fangirl myself because
Mm.
I think, and I wrote this out in a journal, and that was one of the ways I started self-monitoring like nobody's business, right? And so
Mm.
I would write every day, which I've always had, but I used to write just gratitudes, but I would write like more intentionally. about how I
Mm.
felt, my wins for the day. I would do like a month in review, even about my challenges. How did I flow? Like I would monitor myself so much and then reread it. And so
Mhm.
part of the, let's say the monthly monitoring is like your top 10 achievements for the month, right? Or
Mhm.
even going back to the list that I referenced before about like, girl, you do all these things great.
Yeah.
And so I would read those about myself and try to look at it from a lens that it wasn't me, right? Because
Yeah.
I am, again, what did I say? I was a hype woman. I can hype
Yeah.
all my friends up. Like, what you mean they didn't pay you, girl? And I would like, here's your proposal. Like, send an email, just this right here. BCC me if you have to. Like, I would
Yeah.
like go to that. And I was like,
Yeah.
dang, for me, I wouldn't even ask for a raise. And I know I did above and beyond. And so I started being my own champion and looking at
Yeah.
myself outside. And as I self monitored and reread my achievements, and even like I'm like a content queen, so I would rewatch my flows. I'd be like, yo, that's me. That's kind of cool. Like, I think this is
Yeah.
great. I would actually, going back into my friends, tap into them as well for emotional support and be very transparent and honest and be like, hey, I'm transitioning out of releasing this really well paying job to
Yeah.
bootstrapping my own business. And I believe in the work I'm doing. You've always told me this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I need, more support, enthusiasm. And so even after like some of my events, they would, either tell me like, hey, this is something that someone said, or they got to a friend to where she would pass out business cards. She knew exactly where all my stuff was. And if
Mm.
somebody asked, she would literally advocate for me. And so when I started seeing that, I was like, oh, I can do this. People
Yeah.
believe in me. People support.
Yes.
And although they have been this whole time, it's like a wake up thing, and it comes at every level. And that's why I was saying being able to tell yourself like each level, like no, keep going, you can do this. It just takes time,
Mhm.
patience, courage, and patience are cousins.
Yes. They
you know,
are.
and so,
Yeah.
really, like having faith and believing in yourself. And I
Mhm.
think that I was just talking to someone about this, and I believe it so firmly that, like, the biggest thing is trusting yourself and your decisions, right? So, building that courage and using that as fuel to really trust my own intuition, trust myself, and trust my decisions. Because once I can
Yes.
do that, then it's okay. What someone may deem as failure, I'm like, you know what? I trust myself to pivot, to fix this or to keep going. Or I trust
Yeah.
myself to be like, oh girl, you might need a little part-time job. And that's okay.
Yes.
Or I trust myself. So it's like nothing is bad or good. You just trust yourself to make the decision that follows that. And so that's how I
Whew.
built my
Okay. So I'm just going to
career.
touch on the trust thing because that is something that I have to affirm a lot, especially the women that I coach,
Yeah.
is their ability to trust themselves. And I'm like, you didn't get to this point in your life just by showing up. There were
Right.
decisions that you made, mainly good decisions.
Hmm.
You have the insight, you have the intuition,
Yeah.
and that is your evidence that you should trust that you're not going to make the wrong decision for yourself, or the
Yes.
decision that you're making right now isn't the wrong decision, right? It's a scary one because there's a lot of unknowns, but you
Right.
can rely on yourself to show up for
Yeah.
yourself if you need it. And I think that I love that you said that. And I actually was doing a presentation yesterday. We were talking about imposter syndrome, and I said there is like I said everybody can define what tools and resources that they need to help themselves through navigating imposter syndrome, but you have to have a few rules of engagement. And
Yeah.
one of the things I said is you have to have grace,
Yes.
right? You have to have patience.
Yes.
You also have to have, what was the other word? You have to have people around you who are affirming, affirmative
Yeah.
relationships. You described that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also have to have trust. That was the
Yes.
other part, and there was a couple other there, but the ones that you just demonstrated is exactly what I was
Right.
talking about, right?
Yeah,
And so
it's
that
real.
was I'm so glad that you said that. I love, and it was funny you brought it back up about the list of characteristics, and I
Hmm.
love this idea of self monitoring, right? And I think that is,
Yes.
oh, that was another one, self awareness. That was another
Yeah.
part of it, right? And
Yeah.
so the self monitoring is actively being in a state of self awareness. Is that correct? Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. When I think about, I love self monitoring, and I've been doing this for, yeah, heavy for about like 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I love about the self monitoring aspect is being able to identify your patterns and your
Hmm.
cycles. There's times when it's like, oh, being very intentional, let's say 28 days or every month. And even as people do like their quarterlies or their yearlies, you're really able to maximize your productivity that way. When it comes to self-monitoring, like you're able to see what really is good for you. Like I can see that, for example, through self-monitoring in my calendar, I have 3 days that have to be creative days. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to plan anything. I'm still working technically because I can just be writing up my blog and like just getting lost in the idea of writing and creating. And then there can be admin days. But through self monitoring and seeing that, like coming from my corporate baddie, 9 to 5, because I would leave the house like, let's say 8 to 6. I was
Yeah.
forced to be somewhere. And I could see the days where I'm like, I do not want to be here. Or I called out and like it was scattered in those journals.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And now there's like more fluid movement and you're able to tap into more of that intuition as
Mm-hmm.
well when you're self-aware because you can see the patterns. Let's say you have a big decision and your fears to that, and then
Yeah.
maybe you come back and you reread it and you're like, oh wow, and there's a different perspective. And so it really just helps you develop that intuitive power, I like to say as
Yeah.
well. Some people say it's like your gut, but in
Mm-hmm.
reality, I like to say it's like the design, it's like a winning check mark. I
Yeah.
hope like people, I try to reframe my mind to thinking it's from a bad thing to like, nope,
Yes.
check,
Yes.
boom.
Yeah.
I got the next token to this game of
Yes.
life versus
Yeah.
it being bad. And so with self-awareness, I think that helps you also make better career decisions, tying it back into the career element of it, because it allows, I say one thing in my yoga class where I'm like, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So when
Mm-hmm.
you understand and know how you feel within your mind and body, then
Yes.
no one can kind of cross that, right? I'm kind of like, no, I'm good. I know that. And you can feel sound and safe. And so, even when it comes to like looking at different careers or trying to maximize your career, really standing strong in your own boundaries and standing strong down, like kind of like the gifts and the passions that you do versus just getting caught up and doing all the things.
Yeah.
And so, being self aware, even in my corporate baddie position, kind of helped me realize that no, I didn't like working with this individual actually. Like
Yeah.
always something, my nervous system was always shaky after, or
Yeah.
this meeting probably should happen with my supervisor's supervisor also, because
Yeah.
this is kind of uncomfortable. And so I was able to even kind of shift things that way.
Yeah. Something that I did that you just articulated was, sometimes people struggle with getting started and they see the end goal. Usually the end goal is represented in somebody else, what somebody else is doing, right? They use it as like an inspiration for themselves. But that
Hmm.
getting started part feels so overwhelming. And what
Yeah.
I appreciated is you said you started this self-monitoring 4 years ago. So you were still in corporate baddie mode when you did that, right?
Yeah.
And so but I wrote down the word because this was another thing I shared at my presentation, having gentle consistency
Oh,
or
yeah.
graceful consistency, right? And so it was like, even though things weren't always great for you in your corporate space, you
Hmm.
still were building slowly by just doing that simple self
Yeah.
monitoring consistently, right? So when you were really ready to make that shift, that
Yeah.
change, it didn't feel as heavy as it could have
Yeah.
because you were preparing yourself
The whole time.
gradually, right? For
Yeah.
the process. And I think about like myself as a coach and the fears that I experienced and experience
Right.
still. And I realized that there were little things that I was doing, in my younger self. I probably was kind of flippant about not
Yeah.
realizing the impact, but I knew like if I at least do this this one thing, I'm going to get something out of it. I may not see it right
Yes.
now. And eventually it built to now where I do have the self awareness to say, I, need this boundary, or this helps
Yeah.
me, or speaking to this person helps me, right? And so
Yes.
I just wanted to share, like, something that you demonstrated was just to get started with just something simple that is dedicated just to you and no
Yeah.
one
I,
else, right? Just take a little
I love
5 minutes of your time, 10 minutes. It's gentle because you build on top of it. You add more as you're ready to add more, right? You don't start with this
exactly.
big, heavy load and you're trying, that ends up,
No.
you know, weighing you down. You want to start with a little pebble and you add another and
Yeah.
another and another, right?
Yeah. And that's directly like applicable to building strength when we think about our
Yes.
muscles as well, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's the same thing. This is why even with my business, it's like trying to like even pair. We see our vessels, our bodies on the exterior, right? So if I
Mm-hmm.
literally go and lift for 20 minutes a day, over
Mm-hmm.
time, you're physically going to see a difference, right? And that's
Yeah.
why we get really caught in that. We love that. Ah,
Yeah.
give me a before and after. I love it. I'll scroll down TikTok for some before and afters. I love
Yeah.
it, right? But then when it comes to our mind, we don't see that as
Mm.
much, right? Or it's harder to conclude or analyze those results in, but it's, yeah, no, it's just harder, period, point
Yeah.
blank, end of story. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of, I like to say, we have to be the conductor of that. And so even through self-monitoring, like writing every day, I'll look back at the beginning of the month and at the end. And even if you go through prompts, I love the bit by bit, because even for me, I think of it as just incrementally. I don't want to do this all at once. Think of cleaning your whole house all at once. No, just clean one step at a
Convincing
time.
ourselves we can, and 2 hours
No,
later,
right?
that pile of laundry is still in the corner.
Yeah, hands on our hips, looking around like, what is this? And you're over here stressing over things, clothes over to the side of the bed, try
Yeah.
to sleep.
Yes.
Right, it's a mess. So,
Yeah.
we need to break it down incrementally, right? And
Yeah.
time over piece by piece. I think about it like with your mind, and I say mind, but that even means the decisions that we make, right?
Hmm.
And it's backed by science as well, like
Yeah.
with self monitoring and even just helping with relieving stress and physically writing it, not
Yeah.
necessarily even typing, physically writing, like it just, yes, it's
Yeah.
everything. And so I do encourage anyone, and even when you say incrementally or starting somewhere, the ways that I tell some of my clients to start is just by your feelings, right?
Hmm.
Here's some tips and tricks.
Okay.
One of my calendars, I wake up every morning and it's on my way to the bathroom, right? So
Hmm.
I stop by there before the bathroom every morning. I have a pen next to it. It's just a regular calendar that has the square boxes. I write down what time I woke up. I kid you not,
Mm.
and how I feel. That's it. Woke up 7:40. Sometimes I'm confused because I try not to like super check my phone.
Yeah.
And then say I woke up feeling motivated, or I woke up kind of tired. And if I'm tired, I'll go back and be like, went to sleep at 3 a.m. last night, you know?
Yeah.
And even just that, like as small. And the thing that gets people even more, I think, is curiosity. Is
Yeah.
curiosity. So if you're just writing that for 5 days, you're like, hmm. And then eventually it gets a little longer, whether it's on that or whether you actually write something out or whether
Hmm.
you're curious about looking up a prompt or writing out something in a note. You get curious
Yeah.
naturally,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not a checkbox. It's not something your boss told you to do. It's something that you should be curious about yourself. Because again, you're the conductor. Only you can feel your feelings and only
Yeah.
you can express and communicate them. And so I think it's really cool to be curious about those things,
Yeah.
and look at the solutions because we can't necessarily see it on TikTok. You see it over time. You see some of your friends, you're like, wow, she's been putting
Yeah.
in work, right?
Yeah, I love that word curiosity. I think Brene Brown talks
Yeah,
about that as well. But curiosity also to me is fun, right? It doesn't
yes,
have
exactly.
rules. It's just like it's
No,
freedom, right? To be curious. And I
yes,
think being curious about ourselves
yeah,
allows us to really explore the potential that we have that we didn't know
yes.
existed. And it's like, I wonder, let me try this. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
I've done this many times. Okay, this is something about me that I didn't realize just by
Right.
purely having that level of curiosity.
I was saying purposeful curiosity.
Yes.
There's two elements, like being curious, like trying something new, like for example, going to Tai Chi
Hmm.
or doing force bathing. It's just like something that's just different. You may meet someone. And then on top of that, like being curious because of the fact that like we haven't even lived our best days yet, right?
Yeah.
Like I even think of people, some people see me and they're like, oh, the yoga instructor. And I'm like, little did they know, this is only 18 months of my life. Like, no one knows me as a yoga instructor,
Yeah.
but the brand new people who meet me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think of that. I'm like, oh, maybe in 5 years they'll be like, oh my God, are you that DJ? Like we could do whatever we like. And apparently, and you see this because you're in this transformative
Yeah.
element of seeing people evolve in their
Yeah.
careers. And so being curious allows you to actually be like, oh, they picked on me for wearing Bantu knots, but actually I really love designing parts in people's hair, and now I do parts on the side or something
Yeah.
like that. And so being curious even about the things that people diminished you on, like as you were growing up, and still just going back as an adult and be like, wait, I do like this. Being
That
cool.
is powerful. That's
Yeah.
powerful because that's not the time, and we're both in coaching spaces, so we're
Yeah.
obviously hearing and receiving a lot of messages
Yeah.
in terms of just self-reflection and healing. And I I want to say that's probably the first time I've heard curiosity framed in that way. Even with what I've read
Oh,
from Brene Brown, like that is really, really powerful
thank you.
um,
Yeah.
insight that I hope people really internalize. I wanted to give you like a little flower because the last time we spoke, I was talking to you about like my journey with my womanly parts and my uterus and
Yes.
cycle tracking and things like that.
Yeah.
And you said you do an act, you meditate and you do yoga, and you
Yeah.
said sometimes, depending on the time in the month of your cycle, it's a little bit harder for you to do some of those critical thinking pieces. And so
Yes.
you'll sit and you're getting something done, but it aligns with like where your brain and your body is in that state, right? So
Right.
I think you said like when you're doing your meditation, you'll think of like a specific
Ideas.
ideas or spiritual activities that you want to do, and it doesn't
Yeah.
require too much heavy decision making. And so I
Right.
actually started doing that. It didn't come up
Yay.
as meditation, but I've actually started getting back into the practice of meditation actually this past
Awesome.
week. I used to do it a lot heavily, and so thankfully I feel like that is helping me transition back into it. For instance, organization makes me feel a sense of control in terms of like
Yeah.
that. So like if it's hard for me to make a major decision, I'll just start like straightening up stuff, and I
Yes.
usually get like the decision make, and I feel great because my apartment looks good, right?
Yes. I decluttered my whole home last weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
Had podcasts running, and I felt like Edward Scissorhands out here. Like, ah,
Yes,
seasonal
exactly.
shit.
Exactly. And for me, it was just like you're allowed to not show up the same way all the time.
All the
That's what I got
time.
from that. Like
Yeah.
it's okay that your body's been tired. I literally shared that on my Instagram. I said I was tired. And
Yeah.
so that's why y'all haven't seen anything from me. My body needed it. And I said, you know what? I'm glad that I gave myself time to
Yeah.
rest. And when I say gave myself time to rest, I mean even that chatter. Because there were times when I was
Yes.
unproductive, but my brain was going 4 miles an hour and I was still being exhausted. And so
Yeah.
now I'm learning how to not necessarily quiet the voices because sometimes they still come around, but just be kind
Yeah.
to myself. Like, you're doing this because you're in a habit of doing your voices,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But just know that just trust yourself that you're going to get
Hmm.
stuff done because you always get it done, girl.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank you for that because that was really and you were just kind of
Oh,
telling me in
I love it.
passing, and it was very, very affirmative for me. I appreciate that.
Thank you. That even ties in to with the patterns, right? I didn't want to go straight ham to the audience and be like, boom, cycle syncing. But, it kind of showcases the patterns in general. And so even with that one in particular, going back to productivity or the grace and helping yourself. Because at the end of the day, the trust has to be within yourself. Yes, I trust myself that if I don't do this proposal because I feel like I'm literally like in pain or not feeling it or whatever, that either that opportunity is not for me or it will get done and it will be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of times during the beginning of this, and especially when you talk about meditation, and even just tips on kind of coming out of that PTSD when you're in a bad work environment, is how you can relax through the day and understand that your productivity cycles can vary, right?
Yeah.
So, being a meditation teacher and a yoga instructor, I need to, like, the meditations that you listen to are for me, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
like chill,
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
Like when I think of corporate baddie, I was like, like meetings, 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 like masculine energy
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Even with this, when I think of the meditations, it's more on that vibe when I'm supposed to be more relaxed and chill. And so I do that meditation. My meditations would be the top of this, and that's work. Those who listen will feel the energy of excellence that comes through versus like having to rush through things. And so when we monitor ourselves and do things according to what you need, then that energy is exuded through your work because it's always good versus forced. Oh, I got to get this done and I feel like crap. Or imagine me coming up, hi, I'm Radiance and I'm attitude of the year. Like, come on. So it's been helping me a lot too.
Yeah.
And even your workouts to it and the foods that you eat and the tea. I do my tea according to it.
So great. And I want to share, love the content that you put out.
Thank
It's
you.
so beautiful. I see the corporate baddie and,
Yeah.
the marketing badass that you were, along with, the healer and the coach that you are. It
Yeah.
translates very well. And it just
Thank
makes me
you.
proud to be a Black woman. Like, as we were talking here,
Yeah.
I was like, man, we do some great stuff.
We do. We
We
really do.
really do. Like, it's a
We
shame
do.
that there are people who don't really get to see the beauty of who we are. It doesn't matter if they see it or not
Yeah.
because we're doing it for ourselves. But man, we
Right.
do some amazing things. So can you just
Yeah.
share where people can
Awesome.
follow you and find you or even hire you as a coach?
Yeah. So absolutely. So I do love socials. So now I have a few. My Instagram and my TikTok will be energy. So ENERGY, the number two,
Mhm.
and then radiance, RADIANCE. So energy to radiance. You are going to have a ball in
Mhm.
there. And
Yes.
then for all of the resources that I have, like on YouTube, Pinterest, and then another TikTok actually, will be soul hydration. My website is rootedinradiance.com, and that you can be able to look for all of online digital resources. We have different classes where I have meditations on Insight Timer, the world's largest well-being app, as well as so many videos as far as like for solfeggio frequencies to help you go to sleep, and meditations and all of that stuff would be on the website. And so getting to one of those avenues, you're going to get all my information because I try to be like the interwebs and
Yeah.
connect everything.
Yeah. Beautiful. I was
So
looking to see
everyone,
as you were talking if I follow Soulful Hydration. I feel like I do, but if not, I'm about to.
that soul hydration on
Oh,
YouTube.
got it.
Yeah, so on YouTube.
Okay.
And so we have different classes that you can take online as well as the meditations. And so come champion your well-being, y'all, like, because at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm super focused on is making sure that people feel good about themselves and that they know that they can take care of their minds and bodies. I know we make this joke that Black don't crack, but we still got to take care of it.
Like on the outside, but we definitely
Right.
crack. So, yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So, but it's been awesome. Like working with you, I'll give you your flowers as well. Working with you has helped me to wake up out of my robotics. I always tell folks I should have done it for Halloween, be the Tin Man, because I was just walking around here like not knowing anything, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I do want to just say really thank you, truly, is just for seeing me genuinely and inspiring me. So it's not necessarily like to force to be like, hey girl, go get this
Yeah.
job. It's like you really just helped me see who I was,
Oh,
in a greater dynamic, and then just go back to like, let me go try this. I'm going to Ghana,
yeah.
but it's still rolled into all these other opportunities. And so I just really appreciate you. And I
Oh,
look forward to all the new fireworks we got coming
I
up too.
know. Listen, we're literally just getting started, and I appreciate it. That means so
Yeah,
much to me. I feel like, especially as a Black woman, we're not just given permission to just be ourselves, and you
right.
know. And so I always want to just give people
Yeah.
permission. They're not asking me
Yeah.
for it. I'm just telling them like, you have permission
You can do it. Yeah.
just by being. So, thank you, Radiance. This is so great. I'm so
You're
happy.
so welcome.
Thank you to everyone who was listening. Yes, please follow Radiant, and everyone have a good one. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.